Okay, so here we are with the state of the Bitnation, or that's what we're going with for now.
Yeah, the state of Bitnation.
That sounds good. My name is Rafael. I own Ideias Radicais, or Ideias Radicais in Portuguese. It's a Brazilian channel about anarcho-capitalism, so people call me the Brazilian Molyneux. I think I just got a little bit more hair than he does, so I don't like a whole lot. But, you know, he's good, so I like that comparison. And so if you may introduce yourselves.
So my name is Susanne Tempelhof, and 2 years ago I founded Bitnation, or 1.5 years ago. And Bitnation is a decentralized, borderless, voluntary nation powered by the blockchain technology. The blockchain technology is the technology that's powering Bitcoin, the digital currency. And before that, I spent 7 years working for various governments, mainly doing research on governance. And after that, I became an anarchist, So I quit and...
Happens to the best of us.
Yeah, and I started Bitnation to basically outcompete the monopoly on nation states, the monopoly on governance, or let me say the global oligopoly on nation states.
And you on the backside?
My name is Felipe Alarcon. I've been an anarchist for the most part of my life. A few months ago, I just found out about Bitnation and about Susanne, and she was here in Brazil. And I just got in and started working and loving the idea even every day more and more. And nowadays here I am. I'm Evoke just made me an ambassador on the Bitnation. So you can say that I'm the ambassador for Bitnation in Brazil, something like that. Yeah, I'm actually. Yeah.
Does that give you diplomatic immunity?
Well,
no
not
tracks
yet.
on bags, special mail?
Not yet, because Brazil doesn't recognize us as a sovereign government yet, but we are working on it.
Yeah, and it depends how you see it. I mean, because if you read I can't recall the exact number of the convention, but according to the Vienna Convention, people have the right to declare sovereignty, right? So, and people automatically have diplomatic protection, as sovereign individuals. I mean, the law was basically made to cater for stateless individuals, etc. People from unrecognized territories. So, I mean, technically we do have, but it's just that nobody, or not many countries would recognize our sovereignty, right? So,
yeah, it's one of those cases that it's written on the law, but it doesn't really matter.
Right.
We Brazilians kind of know how that feels like.
Yeah.
That's not a new feeling for us Brazilians.
I know.
Yeah, that's on the Constitution. Yeah, whatever.
Exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah, just for the people that are not Brazilian, because I think we're going to get some public here. We are in the middle of a process of impeachment, and the Supreme Court actually decided, like, here's the Constitution that has the steps to do the impeachment. And they went like, nah.
Yeah,
no, we're not going to do that. That doesn't now. We're going to do that other thing that's not written in the Constitution. It's like another thing that we just made up, and that's that. There's actually like a video of one of the judges going like, he reads the law, he's like reading the law, and there's like 6 words more in the end of the sentence that would completely invalidate his point, and then he doesn't read that. He's like, I'm not gonna read that. Like some person just he threw that. It doesn't matter.
Not just
like the Second Amendment. It's like the Second Amendment. Like shall not be infringed. Yeah, you can't take that literally, Shall not be infringed.
You don't read the small sentences in the contract, like They don't read it. Just ignore it.
If I didn't read it, then it doesn't exist. It's like kind of insanity. But I joke with that, but that actually happens, and it's not just in Brazil. It happens in the US. It happens in Europe a lot, where you have like this stupid problem. I think Hans Hermann Hoppe wrote something about that. It came up when that impeachment thing happened in Brazil. The Brazilian Mises Institute put up the article where he said that. I don't recall the article precisely, but Hoppe was saying that, wait, you have like a stupid arrangement when you have government law, because they're judge, jury, like the jury, right? It's English? Like they're jury, judge, jury, executor, legislator, and defendant, and prosecutor. Like, how's that going to happen? Like, how are you going to have a judgment like that? We just had one in Brazil where the IRS, the equivalent to the IRS, the Internal Revenue Service, they wanted to monitor people's accounts for transactions above 2,000 reais, which is like $500, which is nothing, just to see if they're evading taxes. But they weren't going to see if you were sending money to some person. They were just going to see, like, he did a transaction above 2,000 reais. He did another in this big ass value. And that could be classified as breaking your privacy, your account privacy, and it doesn't have, that would be done without a judge's warrant. So that would be an invasion of privacy. Yeah. And somebody actually entered with they said, well, this isn't constitutional. You need a judge's authorization to do that. So you had like this stupid situation where the government was trying to watch accounts, bank accounts, to get taxes, and the government was gonna ask the government if it could do that. And you have like, wait, that's not gonna end well, and that's like what you get when you have like a monopoly on a state monopoly on justice, which is what Bitnation breaks. Like you have, it's kind of like the David Friedman Rights Protection Agency. Like you have this contract with rights and laws, and you subscribe to it. And if you don't want it, you can make your own. And then they have to cross with one another, and that's like a diplomacy problem. But you can get that.
Right.
You don't have those stupid interpretations of law, which you just gotta deal with it, because like the state decided that the state can take your money because it's the state, and if you don't like it, you can appeal to the state in his court.
And I mean, right, exactly. And I mean, law. I think we have to remove law from the government, right? We have to separate law and government, because those are two fundamentally different concepts. In many places, for instance, you have, one government, but you have multiple competing laws. Like, for instance, in US, you have the federal government law, and then you have state laws. And they are sometimes, but not all the time, aligned. Yeah, that sometimes they are like outright conflicting. In Europe, we have the same thing with the European Union and, individual nations.
You had a case with the Bitcoin, if it was taxable or not, because like I think Norway wanted to tax it, but then the EU decided no, it's not taxable, and then you get like this mess, which you don't know. Like you don't know what you can actually do.
Exactly, and in some villages, like in some areas, like let's say Afghanistan, for instance, in one village you will have like 4 different competing legal systems. I mean, because there are different tribes, and ethnicities. So they have like Sharia, they have Pashtunwali, they have a bunch of others. Right, so
and they're all state enforceable.
No, they're not state enforceable, but the state doesn't really exist in the villages, right? So who cares if they are state enforceable? Like the state are, the kind of that it's
barely exists.
Yeah, it's like the tribal councils and the elders, and they are the state literally. So it doesn't really matter if it, So so I think like the way we have laws in Bitnation. But like the app we're developing, once it's developed, the idea is that everybody can go online and choose their own code of law, you know, so they can choose, sorry, there was a bug there. So they can choose if they want, like, you know, Sharia law, or British common law, or civil law, or whichever, or if they want to upload their own code of law and refer to that one instead, right? And then they choose their own arbitrator and their own judge, you know? So people, if we do a business agreement, we just need to agree on what code of law we want to use for that particular agreement, and what arbitrator we want to use in case a dispute arises, right? Or multiple arbitrator and witnesses, etc. So we're basically making the blockchain into a de facto jurisdiction, a completely, you know, decentralized polylegal jurisdiction.
When I started talking about Bitnation in the channel, some people actually said, well, they have the system, they have everything going, they just need some land. And I was like, you don't actually need land. Like, because that's, with new technology, I actually talk about this, like 2009, Bitcoin comes up and everybody thinks like that's the new joke of the block. It's like, what the hell is that? It's like, are you stupid? Like what can you do then? You can buy pizza? That's idiotic. And then 6 years later, it's like it's a like $10 billion industry. It's like something like that. And I just think like Bitnation, like, you just popped up. You got like what, 8-10 months, like something like that.
No, like 1.5 years now.
Yeah, 1.5 years.
Yeah, but it kind of flips the idea of how law works, because Bitcoin did that for currency. Like, it's currency, but governments don't control it, and people are going like, wait, but currency doesn't need it's not necessary. But government needs control. Like, who owns that? They're like, no, nobody owns that, and people are like, but I don't get it. And Bitnation's like that. Look, if they don't have territory, and you go like, what? They don't have like castles and an army. Like, no, it's on the digital spaces. You just put it there, and it works. And it just flips the idea of law, because people have like this conception of law that it's something that you don't necessarily agree with. You just like kind of get along with it.
Yeah, that's true. But it shouldn't be.
Like, yeah, it sucks, but yeah, whatever. It's like, it's kind of like cable TV. Like, you got all the channels, whatever. You got to deal with that, because the other provider has the same channels, and you're like, whatever, fuck it. You just give up in your head, and then Netflix comes up, and you're like, okay, I can watch what I want when I want, and that's legal. Yeah. Wait a second, is that? How does, like, people just kind of glitch in their heads? And I think Bitnation is doing that for law. It's like, no, everybody can have their law, and they just talk with each other and get on.
Right.
And people are like, kind of like waiting. So what's the catch? Do I have to have my soul? Is that like illegal?
No, it's all open source code. Everyone can do the code.
It's kind of like how Apple used to do marketing. Like, it just works.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, we just, like, when I started telling people, they were like, you're completely mad. You know, you can't build like a full stack government with, you know, being a government, you know. And I was like, well, why not? Right? Why shouldn't I be able to do that, you know?
I'm pretty sure somebody told Satoshi, like, you can come up with a currency.
Of course.
Yes, I can, and I will. And something.
Right? Yeah.
And I think it's such a weird conception of, you know, it's a nation in code. And like, one of the great things is that you can be sure that governments will be like unable to understand this concept for like 5 years at least.
Yeah.
If you come up like, you gotta ban this, like, this is illegal, and you're gonna have like all those senators going, what is this even? Like, is this like a Facebook page?
Yeah.
Like, how do we deal with this? I don't understand this. you can like 5 years minimum. They're just not going to understand. It's what's happening with Bitcoin right now. Like they're trying to regulate it. They're trying to like figure out some way to deal with it. And the U.S. government was like, can we ban it? No. Can we tax it? No. Is that terrorism? Is like terrorism? Like we could just do that. That's put some Bin Laden stuff. Put like a Bitcoin with like an ISIS member, and people are just gonna hate it. No, it doesn't work.
Especially because of
how do we?
Nation state rhetoric as well, right?
Yeah, and I think Bitnation is gonna. It could expand to that point. Like it's actually starting to work. People are actually starting to use it. Yeah. And governments are like trying to figure out like how do we ban this?
Yeah. I mean, there have been like some UN reports mentioning Bitnation and stuff like that, right? It's kind of coming up in those conversations. Well,
who did reports? Who did
United Nations. Yeah. And they seem like quite confused.
They don't understand it. They don't understand.
I mean, not confused.
What did they say? What did they say?
Well, I mean, they don't know if they're good or bad, really, because they're like, on one hand, they're like helping refugees and doing land titles for poor people in Africa, and on the other hand, they have this like crazy techno-libertarian, message, right? So they don't really.
Space program.
Yeah, they are just like, you can't be both like doing social good and
we are the good guy.
How do we embargo that? Like.
And like telling
call their ambassador,
right?
So
it's, I mean, it's been quite amusing to read the comments. They're like, oh, but you don't understand. They are like, oh, they have these illusions. They are like Marxist, and they have like Marxist, really, like illusions. Like if they just get away with governments, everything is going to solve themselves. It's like what?
And what are you doing right now? Like, what is Bitnation working on right now?
So basically, the most important thing right now is the Pangea development. That's just the beta software. So Pangea was a supercontinental that we had before the different continents like floated apart and were divided by the sea.
No, I'm talking about like the software part.
Right, I just mean where the name comes from, right? And then, obviously. So the software.
In the concept of Bitnation, Pangea is?
Pangea is the actual virtual nation, right? The platform, or the future platform once we have finished building it. So it's basically a virtual nation and a blockchain jurisdiction. So it's going to be focused mostly on dispute resolution initially, and then we will expand it to security services, and then create a very good API so everybody can create third-party applications on top.
Which are the two things that people like think the minimal state should do, like dispute resolution, security. Like it's like the minarchist like kind of dream, like.
Right.
You can't do that without a government,
Yeah, exactly. I mean, because if you look at the Night Watchman state model, if you strip the government down to its very, very basic, right? What the government do is to protect people's private property, and so that's security, right? But a lot of property is increasingly digital as well, so it's more and more digital security as well. So, and then it's like the whole core system, right? So we have focused on those two aspects, providing security services and dispute resolution services, and then we would expand it to other services. Other people, other developers, can also build third-party applications for stuff like, it can be whatever really, polyamorous marriages in Europe, or because that's illegal, right? Or education, or birth certificates, land titles, wills, any kind of business contract, like a freelance agreement. All of that. So basically the way it works is just you go on the chat and then you just like type in an agreement and that gets live coded on the chat, and you don't need to know any coding to do it, right? And that's what we call a smart contract. Then it gets automatically executed on the blockchain. So it have everything, Yeah.
It's kind of like a very complicated sell order of Bitcoin. Like sell this for that.
Yeah, you
and
can
just
say
execute
that.
it.
Right. I mean, you could say that a sell order is kind of the, yeah, very low level.
Do this in this condition. Just execute, and the code just runs it.
Right, exactly. So that's the thing, right? But we have a little bit more of a human focus, you know, through the ability to add in arbitrators, you know, and witnesses, etc., etc. So it's not, I mean, some protocols are just 100%, you know, computer-based. So we are kind of a mix between the two because, you know, let's say we have a perfect agreement. You're going to sell me a car, right, or something. And then the car comes and it's almost okay, you know, but, you know, one wheel is broken. So I don't want to just cancel the entire trade. I just want to modify it saying, well, you know, I should pay like, you know, half a Bitcoin less because I need to repair this, right? So then we can have an arbitrator and modify it so it doesn't have to be so black on white because code is very inflexible by the end of the day, right? So we want
is that kind of contract that what you're saying, that kind of situation in a car sale, you could realistically, like in a blockchain, solve that problem in minutes. Like you put up a photo, like the wheel's broken, here's a photo,
Yeah.
like here's my demand, mediator comes in, blockchain votes, and it's done in like an hour.
Right, exactly. But if you would do it without an arbitrator.
In a state court, that would take like 3 months, maybe?
Right, exactly.
Something like that.
Yeah, it would take several months. Plus, it would cost a lot of money too, between lawyers and, you know, public notaries, whatnot, you know, public notarios, etc. Yeah, I mean, everything takes like 20 minutes and it's done, and it costs less than like $2, right?
Which is basically the coin transaction costs, like the cost to put something in the blockchain.
Right, exactly. Or
which then again goes to the miners and it's figured out.
yeah, I mean, it can also be, you know, if you want to have an arbitrator, the arbitrator is going to charge, you know, per hour or whatever, right? Unless it's a pro bono arbitrator. So that can be added extra cost, but that's like a, you know, additional option. So and
that's the kind of system where you can have an arbitrator, that you can have like the ranking for an arbitrator, like how well he satisfies his clients.
Right, exactly. I mean, everything will be based on the reputation system. That is really key to everything.
Yeah, that's kind of like what David Friedman talks in his Machinery of Freedom. He says like, well, we're going to have, if you don't have state, you have like independent private arbitrators. And there is an incentive for them to corrupt themselves. They could sell decisions. But if people are aware of their corruption, if they're aware that they get like 90% or 80% or 70% of decisions right, you just don't use them. If like anybody that has ever bought something on the internet, you know, like if the seller has a rating of like 98%, you just go like, that's not gonna work. Like everybody that has bought something on the internet like knows you gotta be like 99.5%, because I know, because I sold stuff in the internet. You have to have like that kind of ranking.
Right, so, and I mean, we can already see it working on like eBay or hotels.com, etc.
So you switch that system to mediators, which it's what Silk Road actually did. I hate to bring up the example of Silk Road, which was a drug selling website, but Jeffrey Tucker actually talks about this. He says that the smart thing that Silk Road did was that sellers had a ranking system. So if some guy sold bad stuff, he would get downranked. So you know, like you have like this platform where you have everyone in there and you know their ranking. You know if they supply good or bad things. And if they do, they have to explain themselves, like to the entire community. It's not to the buyer. They have to explain themselves to everybody that's watching. So you have the perfect system to have like this public rating that is just snap fast.
And in Bitnation, it's not only going to be, you know, people offering services if you have reputation, but like nations themselves have reputation. Individual Hollands, like parts of the nation, like different departments basically, have a reputation. Laws themselves have a reputation, and people reviewing laws have a reputation for being good or bad at reviewing and recommending laws. And, you know, every individual have a reputation too. So it's basically all these intermixed reputations. And, you know, once we get closer to like artificial intelligence, it will be much more interesting, because then a lot of this reputation will be automatic too, you know, based on like, you know, contributions you submit, etc., like certain things you do. Sometimes you may not even know that you're doing them, but you will still get reputation points, right? Like, you know, for instance, if you successfully do a trade, you know, that will be added to your reputation, saying like trade successfully concluded, etc.
Yeah, that's the problem that you have with the reputation system, that people have actually to be informed of your reputation. Like people can go around the village asking. That's time consuming. That's inefficient. But if you have like a digital system that's just so easy, it's so simple, and it really puts a big incentive into behaving, into like acting like a regular, normal, just and honest person, because at the moment you slip, like that's completely public. So you're kind of screwed. Because today if you have like a small seller, like a small store, like kind of in the outskirts of the town, he can like fool some people, and it's not gonna come back to bite him in the back. But if you have this open reputation system, it's like you can't get away with stuff. You just can't.
Right, but I think, I mean, we have been discussing this a lot, because we don't want to create, you know, like if you live in a place where everything is based on the reputation system, like, you know, in Afghanistan, for instance, it's, you know, it's like people monitor each other, and that creates a kind of repressive society, which isn't really what we want to, you know, that's not really the future we want to see either. So we have to calibrate the reputation system very carefully to make sure it doesn't end up as social oppression, right? Or as
that's the difference between having an idea and implementing it. Like people think like the idea is so good. Like you had an idea, man, but it's gonna take like 5 years to figure out how to properly code that.
Exactly, and there's going to be a lot of mistakes and a lot of resets. You know, I mean, it's going to take years to perfect it. But you know, but let's say, so what we promote is basically whitelisting rather than blacklisting. So people can't use it as an extortion method, saying, you know, oh, if you don't do this, I will give you bad identity points. Now, like, give me all your money type of thing, right? Something like that. Huh? So instead, we'll just, you know, enable it so that people are to, like, give people good reputation points. Huh? So that will basically, you know, rather than punish people for being bad, it will motivate people to be good, right?
Yeah, that's. I actually used to study that in psychology. It's the difference between negative reinforcement and positive reinforcement, and the difference between reinforcement and punishment. Like the law is punishing. It punishes you when you make mistakes, and when you do everything right, you get no reward. And the free market's completely different, because if you do something wrong, you get punished, and if you do something right, you get rewarded. And you actually see that like in coaching for fighters. I'm actually a big fan of the UFC, and you see like the coach style to coach the fighter. Like you have some coaches that they really use negative reinforcement or punishment. They're like, no, you can't lose because you're gonna be pussy. You can't, you know, take hits because that's weak stuff. You can't, you shouldn't. And you have the coaches that they're going like, oh, that was a good combination. That was a good punch. Calm down. You're doing fine. You have like this different style. And you see that the fighter that gets like that negative reinforcement, that negative pressure, he performs, but when he fails, he just crumbles. He's like, he just flips in his head and just loses everything. And the guy that gets the positive reinforcement, he fucks up and he's like, no, okay, I'm going to hit something. That's okay. And it's hard to kind of code that system, but, you know, if you got like a few thousand people trying, one of them is going to get it right eventually.
I don't think so. I mean, like the protocol we are looking to integrate, Identify have already done it, actually. And I can send you the link to the code. You know, and it's working. They have a proof of concept out that's working. We haven't integrated it yet, but probably sometimes this spring, and that's really focused on, whitelisting rather than blacklisting. So that's why we choose them. There are many competing reputation systems already out there, but I think that is the best one. And it was created by a guy called Marty. He was like the third person to join after, Satoshi and Alfani, right? So he's really a very cool guy. Like this really, shy, awesome, super geek from Finland.
It's nice because you have like this actually competing reputation systems. So whatever system works best, it survives. You have like this kind of Darwinian selection of systems, like just do whatever and whatever works, works. And you have like the free market on steroids just going on ideas, and it's amazing to see.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, we're already seeing that in Bitnation. It's not like, unlike a government that kind of appoints committees to do things. In Bitnation, everyone can just join the Slack and start their own Holland and do their own project, and then, if it's good, other people will join them, people will finance them, and if it's not good, they will just have to keep struggling themselves, And so it's a direct meritocracy without like central, central control, basically.
Yeah, but the control is actually the code. You have to obey like basic coding laws. You can't just write gibberish, but other than that, it's just.
Well, yeah, but
thing on it.
That's open source. The code is open source.
And
yeah,
I mean,
but I feel like you have to actually, code correctly. You can't just like write whatever and just, like that's the oppression you get. Like you gotta code properly.
Well, yeah, but not all projects needs to be coding related. I mean, some are not coding related. Like for instance, the ambassadors doesn't really do code, and
Translations.
Yeah, translations and like education doesn't have much to do with code. I mean, so there are many projects that are not code related actually, which really sets from like a lot of the other communities in crypto, which is like just code, like backend code, hardcore type of thing. We are much more, kind of open.
User-friendly kind of platform.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we're very front-end UI, UX, market adoption focused. We don't even have, well, we have kind of a backend, but we're using other blockchains as a backend, right? We're using the Bitcoin blockchain and the Ethereum blockchain and the Next and Horizon blockchain. So we are really focused on just building the front-end stack. But, people, it's like, it's like in the early days of internet, like everybody was working on HTTP, right? But someone needs to build like actual user applications like Facebook and Kickstarter as well, right? So that is basically all we do. We build actual applications on top of it. The kind of end user stuff.
Yeah, and you kind of get like, in the end, you might get something like the App Store, where people are just like, I wrote this, it's a small thing that does like this, and this. Like whoever wants it, just copy that. And you got like this little, like kind of Lego puzzles of, in coding, like bigger coding works a lot like that. Like I need a program to do 3 things. Well, there's this code that does 1 thing. So I'm just gonna take this, put it in the middle, and write on top of that. And just figure out the other 2 things. And you may end up like getting this kind of nation. Like, couldn't you? Like, people go like, well, we have like this law system, but I like that with the education system. Just kind of throw them together and get like, okay, go. I like that.
Exactly. I mean, the point is that everybody should be able to create their own nation, right? And so we have like, instead of having a market of the 200 or so nation states we have today, we should have like millions of competing nations, right? And may the best one win, right?
Yeah, and I like the system where, like, if you have a decision, the forking of nations, if you have a nation and like 70% of them decide to go one way, the other 30% can decide to stay or just fork, and you just like take that constitution, break it in 2, and they just go off. Like that rule changes, and everybody gets what they want, which is the exact opposite of what you get in democracy, which is like just about like 10% get what they want. I think it's Milton Friedman who actually said this, because he said you can get 10% of people to get what they want in democracy, because you can get some 20% fools to agree with you, and then you kind of sell off to some other 10%.
Yeah.
And you need like some 4, 5, 10% more, which can just lie to them. And it doesn't matter. You just lie to them, and you got 52%, and you got elected. And then you just dump some people, and you lie to the other one, whatever. You rule right now. And there are the other people who are going to vote for you, because it's not like they like you, but they hate the other guy, so they'll vote for you.
Right. It's a horrible way to make decisions.
So you get like 5 or 10% people getting what they want, and 90% of people are like, yeah, we're just gonna, kind of wait for, 4 years. It's kind of like the Olympics,
Democracy is like the biggest scam ever, and it's just a topic that changes as well. I mean, the actual bureaucracy doesn't change, and bureaucracy is, 90% of it. All political parties are the same. They're all incompetent.
Yeah, and it's amazing how, actually today, I get this feeling, especially in Brazil, but I think in the whole world, if you question democracy like 5 or 10 years ago, people were like, what, are you like communists? You're fascists?
Yeah.
What do you want? Like, how do you see, what the hell do you want? And like, and today, if you come in Brazil and you say, democracy sucks, and that's stupid, and people are going to go, yeah, I don't know what else is better, but I can agree with you that that's kind of stupid.
Right.
I think the U.S., especially with the elections that they're going to get this year, they're going to kind of agree more than, maybe democracy is kind of like retarded a little bit, Maybe you should fix that. Maybe
like Trump or Sanders, they're both equally terrible.
Yeah, it's actually amazing.
It's such a
because in every election you choose the lesser evil, and you go like, yeah. And then you go like to the American elections, and you're like, okay, we got Hillary, which is lies, and Clinton and whatever, and you got the crazy 70-year-old who thinks he can make like money come up, which is Bernie Sanders. Yeah, he's like completely divorced from reality. He's like it's amazing. And you got Trump, and you got Ted Cruz. Do you actually know what's the real name of Ted Cruz?
No.
It's Rafael.
It's what?
What?
Rafael.
Oh, really?
Well,
his name is Rafael Cruz.
Oh, really?
Really?
Yeah, and he just like threw in a Ted in there. Like, I'm Ted. Yeah, because no Republican is gonna vote for Rafael Cruz.
Rubio.
They're just going like Ted Cruz, and people go like, yeah, that's American. Kind of sounds American. Vote for him.
And
then you got Rubio, which is, it's amazing. It's like, what the hell is he doing? Like, so there's a dispute that Cruz isn't actually eligible to be president because he's not a natural-born citizen.
Isn't
and then that could go, and now that Rubio is kind of going up, Trump is raising the point that Rubio is not eligible to be president. So you have like two socialists, Trump, and two guys that cannot legally be president, or may not be, I don't know, but they're still in there, and that's what you got.
Hey,
like, welcome to democracy.
I know, right? Well, they're gonna sell a shit ton of autobiographies afterwards, and have like really one big agreements. There is that.
You know what?
Warming up the economy.
All right.
Whenever I read or watch some video about the U.S. elections, I remember that movie Idiocracy.
Oh, yes.
Idiocracy is so good.
That's so
it's
true,
brilliant.
man.
Yeah.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
I'm just looking at Trump's speeches and I was like,
Yeah.
where does this guy come from, man?
I was a bit surprised by like Trump's speeches. I watched them as well to kind of be like, so what's the fuzz all about type thing, right?
Jesus, like,
and I was expecting someone to be kind of like Hitler style, like, rah, you know, just stand and scream. And it's,
it's so obvious. It's like it's the perfect magician thing. Where like, can you hide something? No, then put it in the middle of the stage.
Right.
Because people are gonna think like, yeah, that's not a prop. Like, he's not gonna put something like in the middle of the stage that is actually like the whole trick. He's not gonna do that. And then Trump is like, he's like, we're gonna make the military stronger, and we're gonna fight China, and we're gonna make America better. You're like, yo, Mussolini?
Yeah.
Like
America.
And then you say like, it's the same thing, and people go, no, it's totally different. It's not. No, like, no. And it's like so blatant. It's like the clear, like hidden in plain sight kind of thing.
Yeah, and forbid Muslims to come into the country. I mean,
yeah, it's
I mean,
because that's actually like Clinton. You know, Obama was hiding in plain sight. He was like, I'm gonna do an Affordable Care Act, which is gonna cost a lot of stuff, but you're not gonna have to pay for it, and it's not socialism.
Oh, right, yeah.
and like everything was blatant lies, and he was like saying that whatever, and like people bought that.
Yeah.
And but it's amazing to see like that process of like just hiding in plain sight in politics. Like, yeah, I'm just gonna
yeah, but at the same time,
be something and then say I'm not, and that's it, and people just buy it. How? But it's like.
But at the same time, like I found it really fascinating the way he speaks. He's just kind of like muttering to himself, kind of like, this guy, yeah, he's a good friend of mine, you know, and let me tell you this, you know, it's kind of like, he's not a very inspiring talker, actually. I would have thought he would be like a much better talker. So I find it kind of shocking that people get so like enthusiastic about him because, you know.
Okay.
I mean, like if you compare Trump to someone like yourself, Raphael, right? Like you are 50, 1,000 times a better talker, actually, just in terms of like being engaging, you know.
It's because like I can't actually do the kinds of joke that I can. He can't do that. Pretty sure he cannot improv jokes on the Bitcoin. Pretty sure he cannot do that.
I actually would love Susan to know Portuguese for her to watch your videos because I love them, and I was like, hey, you gotta know what these guys are saying. It's like,
what I actually try to make is libertarianism or anarcho-capitalism like intuitive to the point where you feel like kind of dumb that you didn't figure that out earlier.
That's the feeling I got. That's the feeling I got when I watched your videos.
Because like a lot of people like say to me, like they're watching my videos and they go like, yeah, why did I think of that before? It's like, fuck it. Like today I actually made a video because some guy in Brazil made a video that politicians should make less money. They should get lower wages because they're getting too high wages and people feel like they're being stolen. They're trying to figure it out. And if you pull down the wages, people are going to think that the system is more fair, so they're not going to rebel. I was like, okay, you're thinking like a statist. That's good. But have you ever figured out like that politicians should not get wages because like nobody would buy that service?
Right, exactly.
Yeah. Nobody would go like, you know what, I need a senator. Like, like my toilet's clogged. I can't really need a representative here. Like they can like mayor, and it's. And I actually said like because in Brazil you have I'm not sure if you have like in every single big city, but you have like this cars like, and they sell like like sometimes some types of food. Sometimes they sell just some types of food.
Yeah.
and they get like this big ass sound system on them, and they just go like driving on the street like at 10 miles per hour, going like, "This is the candy car, candy for $1," and it's like fucking annoying as hell.
Susanne was here at my place and she listened to some cars going by doing that.
They actually do that. It's like, pamonha, pamonha. It's fucking. Like, and I actually said like imagine in the free market, like the car going by like, Senator, yes, on education, we'll take your money and lie to you. For now, come down if you want to get the service. We'll come back next Tuesday. That's like, that's what I do. Like, and people laugh and they figure out like, hey, yeah, that's really fucking dumb. Like, we actually have this system and we never figured it out. Like, because I used to work as a magician, and as a magician, like, you learn things, and when you do a trick to people, you think like, no, they got it. Like, I messed up. And people are just amazed, and you're like, but it's just like a card, and it's just like this, and you, are you dumb?
Yeah.
Like, it's so fucking obvious. Like, I'm flipping 2 cards, you idiots. Like, don't you see that? Like, it's so, and when you tell people, they go like, oh.
That's it?
and the same thing happens when you actually expose the state. Yeah, you know, actually, you talk libertarianism, you talk like anarcho-capitalism, but you don't talk like academic. You talk like, you know, there's this guy, and he actually allocates how much corn is going to go to each like producer. Because what he does is that he has like this big ass Excel file, and he has every single one of them. And do you actually think he has that, or do you think that he just does whatever and sends it to his friends? And people go, yeah, that's like, why would he work when he doesn't have to? Why would he do that? And you go like the simple things, the simple interactions, and people realize like this is actually dumb, but you don't get that questioning. You don't get that, like that kind of jokey actually questioning of, you know, do you actually know like what a congressman does? Like, would you want one?
Yeah.
Like, do you think that's a product? You know, how do you think that came up? Like, it was a company, it was really good, and it took over government. Like, do you actually think that?
No, it's someone up there in violence, obviously. But like the thing I found the most interesting of people's perception of the state, right, is that they think the government is like a magical entity. It's like, oh, but how can we have justice without the state? Or who's going to build the road?
It's like everybody is a child in relation to the state. Right. Like, you don't get it.
Right. Or how
it's kind of like your dad's job. You don't understand that. You just kind of get along that he has, he builds cars, and in your head you're thinking like he like spins a wheel and a car comes off, and you're like, yeah, that's probably what he does. I don't know. When you're like 6-year-old, like that's what you had in your head, I think. And like everybody is like that in relation to the state. Like they actually think like, yeah, like they actually like they hear the speeches because they go there and they make speeches, and the other guys, they actually hear the speeches and they think about it, and you're like, wait a second, I never thought about that. That's kind of stupid.
Right.
That makes no sense.
Exactly. I mean, everything the government do, the private sector can do, and most of the things the government do, the private sector already does, And most of the things the government do, they contract it out to private contractors.
Yeah.
So the only thing, so they steal people's money and then they give them to private contractors. I know, I used to be one, right?
Like people that actually know the state are the people that actually worked in there and saw like the wheels move,
right.
The kind of House of Cards style kind of series where you actually do the kind of shady negotiations, and you're like, that's normal. It's like those are the people that actually know what's going on. That's the deep state,
So when I'm trying to tell them, well, so people are like, okay, but how about like social welfare, right? And helping the poor and whatnot. I'm like, yeah, well, yeah, no, I mean, you don't need a government to take money by force. Like, you can have a P2P insurance system, and actually the biggest insurance systems in the world are mutual insurances currently, you know, where people voluntarily pay into a fund when they have money and receive money when they don't have money, you know, that is normal. Everywhere in the world, that is happening day by day, you know, every day. There are millions of people, you know, hundreds of millions of people using mutual insurance schemes, you know.
And if you see like, well, but why don't we have that like in Brazil? And then you go like, wait, that's illegal. That happens.
What? Is it really illegal? Are you sure?
No, I'm not saying like this specific thing.
Yeah.
But often when you get like these ideas that actually solve problems and you're wondering like, why don't we have that? And you figure out like that's illegal. Like in the United States, that there's actually an article, I think it's by Jeffrey Tucker, I'm not sure. He says it's actually, right now, it's literally illegal to sell health insurance in the US. You can't sell health insurance. Like you pay, and if you have a disease, you get a premium. Like that's not legal. You can't do that. You have like this weird pay-as-you-go system that it's completely weird. Wow. And there is a simple system that would solve the problem, but that system is illegal. You know, like,
nice.
That's
why? You know, and that happens with some of those simple solutions to poverty. Like you go, but you could get like this mutual fund, but you would see like, no, but it has to be regulated by this, this, and this, and it will cost this and this.
Yeah.
And you say, okay, so you essentially made it illegal. Like you made it so complicated that you just don't do it.
Yeah, people want to.
And then they are like, oh, you just have to comply to law because that's protecting the people. It's like, no, it's not protecting the people. It's protecting the companies who lobby the government enough to create restrictions so others wouldn't attempt to enter the market. You can see that even with like restaurant regulations, right? Like when McDonald's come to our country, they will lobby the government to say, oh, well, what if there is a fire in the restaurant? You need to have a fire exit. You need to buy this like $15,000 fire extinguisher machine, you know, you need to put that into law because look, there were like 50 people who died by this last year. This is not going to look good for you, you know. Look at all the articles we have managed to put in the media about the risks of this.
Yeah, we actually had a company doing this in Brazil. It was a meat packing company, and they actually forced the government to force every single, what's the name of the place? Like the cow goes in and meat goes out. Like they kill the cow and just processing.
Slaughter place, like a slaughter place.
The slaughterhouse, yeah.
Oh, slaughterhouse.
The slaughterhouse, you had like the local. You had like 3 regulations: local, which was just citywide, a distributor, and exporter. And they had, you know, different regulations, different demands that you had in health regulations. And this meat brand company had everything in exporter, which is more expensive. And the competitors had in the others. So what they did was convince the government to ban these other 2 to make meat better. And you're like, oh my God.
I remember that.
And yeah, it's actually amazing. And what you see, what we're saying about welfare, you know, helping the poor, there's something that people really don't figure out about the whole helping the poor kind of thing, is that poor people vote. So if you help them, you lose voters. And if you let them help each other, you lose your selling points.
Yeah.
So you can't let them help each other. Like you can't allow that to happen.
Right. I mean, that's the whole.
Because then you're not necessary. Like
right.
you have to prohibit to stop them from helping each other, and then you come along. I'm gonna save you, and then you come in and pretend to help them, because so you get the vote, so you get support. And that's not like explicit, but the governments that do that tend to survive. The governments that don't tend to get faded away.
Yeah.
Right. And in Sweden, I mean, it's insane. Sweden is a very socialist country, right? And people in Sweden used to say like, oh well, the government needs to help people, so people don't need to rely on their family and friends for help. And I can kind of understand I understand where that comes from, because it's not always good to, sometimes you're in a critical position and you're,
People are afraid of risk. They're afraid of having bad stuff happen in their lives.
right.
Yeah.
But that have created a society in Sweden where nobody helps each other out. Families don't need to help their children to, study or whatever. Children don't need to help their parents when they are old. Neighbors don't say hello to each other. It's like horribly individualistic, and as a result, we have one of the highest suicides.
It's not really individualistic, because you can have like an individualist, Ayn Rand kind of society where everybody gets along. It's kind of like the divided society, like everybody sees each other like the enemy. Not like,
well, really, what I mean is that individualism is collectivism in a way, because if you can't rely on the government, you have to rely on each other, right? And people have to help each other out, And if you have a government, collectivism, obviously, people actually becomes extremely lonely individuals by it, because the government,
the relations just break away. They're not necessary, so they just fade away.
Exactly, the government removes the need for families or friends to stay together, right?
Yep.
I think that's insane. I mean, that's the most inhuman part, actually, with collectivism. It's individualism.
It's one of the highest suicide rates in the world, right?
Yeah, I think it's definitely on the top 10. It's the highest, one of the highest, or the highest divorce rate, the highest number of single household rates, one of the highest number of antidepressant consumption.
Jesus.
Yeah, no, it's insane. I mean, it's really not a very nice society. I don't know why, Bernie Sanders always say, "Oh, we want to be like Denmark." It's like, have you ever been to Denmark?
I actually saw an article come out like this, like, "Hey, U.S., do you want to be like Denmark? Do you actually know Denmark?"
Yeah,
Actually, there was a socialist guy here in Brazil that told me, "But what about Sweden? They are socialist and they are doing fine."
No, that is so not true.
Have you ever been to Sweden?
I told him, like, yeah, I'm with a Swede here, and she's telling that's not fine, man.
Yeah.
That's not okay. All right.
No.
Things are not.
I want to talk to a Swede about that.
Yeah.
Kind of consult with the guy. Get some local knowledge.
On the phone with her, and he'll explain to you. That's not fine.
Yeah,
Jeez.
and I mean, also, what people fail to realize is that Sweden was very prosperous initially because it was built on a free market, right?
Yeah, that's one of the most insane things. Like in the 1800s, they were one of the freest countries in the world.
Right.
And then, but because a lot of people, I actually talk a lot about against the state, against the welfare state. And then people go, but hey, Sweden, they're really rich and they're really socialist. What I say is okay, suppose you have a big MMA fight and the champion just wrecks the other guy. And he's the undisputed champion, and you see him five hours later, just sleeping on the strip with a vodka bottle, empty vodka bottle, in his side, and he's completely drunk. You're not gonna think, well, I guess if I want to beat people up, I better drink that vodka. You're not gonna think that. It happened after. First he was the champ, and then he got drunk. You're not gonna go, oh, wait a second, he's the champion and he's drunk. So if I want to be the champion, I really need to get that vodka. You don't think that. That makes no sense.
Exactly.
And it's actually what Sweden did. It was rich, socialist. And then, it went to hell.
And then, in 1991, we had a financial crisis in Sweden, which was very bad. I mean, the currency rose so quickly. It was like Argentina-style currency crash, And since that time, people have been cutting down on everything. Everything have been privatized, schools, a lot of the
universities.
Not so much universities, but more high schools and stuff. And, pharmacists. I mean, all kind of things were run by the state. We still have alcohol monopoly run by the state, actually.
Alcohol?
Yeah, it's so absurd. To buy alcohol,
if you kind of think about it, you have a state that really, really, really sucks.
Yeah.
So you have a ministry of getting people drunk.
Yeah. A ministry of alcohol. A ministry of alcohol.
Well, it's actually true, right?
Well, that's a solution for Brazil.
Yeah,
Like, we really need some alcohol welfare because everything sucks. We're in a depression, and we need to forget about it. So everybody should be entitled to 2 bottles of vodka a month, at the very least. That's human rights, people. You know,
and that's
like, you could figure it out.
Bottles don't drink more than that, and they also do like advertising against drinking. They're like, oh well,
We own drinking,
but not
and
that.
you pay for that. And we're gonna tell you to not buy this thing.
right? And they say so like. In Sweden, like it's only going to be open on like weekdays from in like impossible office hours, right? When everybody's at work and can't go to the store, obviously. And
So every single person has like the personal stash of alcohol in a case of emergency.
right, that's what everybody do. Everybody just like goes to Denmark or
You just gotta get on a car, shovel some snow, get in there, buy alcohol, come back, shovel some snow, wrestle a bear, get out, get in your house, get drunk.
It's like the Americans buying like HIV drugs in Canada. It's the same thing.
That's actually amazing.
Buy alcohol.
You know,
yeah.
do you actually remember the Daraprim thing where the guy bought the patent for Daraprim and
Oh yeah, Martin Sprague. Yeah.
it went to $1 from $1 to $7.50, and so, like the day that happened, I made a video and I was saying, okay, this is an opportunity for people that live in countries with cheap Daraprim to send it to the US. Like, the free market's gonna solve it. People in other countries are gonna figure out ways to smuggle that medicine into the US. It's gonna happen.
Yeah.
The next day, you had guys smuggling Daraprim from Brazil to the US with Bitcoin.
No, really?
The next day.
Yeah,
Oh my God, are you serious?
Yeah.
Oh wow, do you have thought about that? That is amazing.
Because Daraprim here is super cheap, so they were like, okay, so it's $7.50, so we're gonna sell for 20. So we buy here for 2, sell for 20, get paid in Bitcoin, problem solved. That actually happened. That actually worked, and it's probably still working. That's probably saving lives.
Free market at work. Yeah.
I remember.
It was literally the next day.
Wow.
It was so fucking amazing. I just blew my mind.
Like nowadays here in Brazil, we have Mercado Livre. Mercado Livre.
Yeah, which is it's our local Amazon.
Yeah, it's our local
Not
Amazon.
so good.
Yeah, it's not that good, but I kind of relate that to like a free market, you know, because they charge some taxes when you sell something on their website, but like it's free.
Most guys in there are not paying taxes.
Yeah, but like
Most small sellers there is not paying taxes.
buy anything on Mercado Livre, not illegal things, but like if I want to,
It's an Amazon. It's really
if I want
Amazon.
to sell like a beer can, there, I can put it on Mercado Livre, and there will be someone somewhere in Brazil that will actually buy it. You know?
It's actually, and that's something that I've been thinking about, like how Bitnation kind of fits into that, because I kind of tend to see human history as a speed race between the government and the people. Like, the government is always trying to kind of figure out a way to fool you, to make you think that he's necessary. Like, first of all, like, okay, no, the Pharaoh is God, and you can't question the Pharaoh because he's God, and he's gonna throw the fucking sun in your face. So you shut up and you obey. And then people, after a while, they kind of figured out, like, wait a second, I don't think so. And the state goes evolving, like this kind of Darwinian solution, Darwinian evolution, where the state kind of molds, it kind of survives. Like, the state schemes survive how people adapt and figure out what the state really is. So today you have like this Bismarck model of social services, of government services, where you just bribe the population with your money, because it's what Bismarck did. He was losing a constitutional debate in Prussia, so he just figured out, you know what, they can just like bribe 3 or 5% of the population with free healthcare to the workers. They just can bribe some population, and I'm gonna text the guys that are not voting for me because they hate me anyway. So I'm gonna text them, whatever, and that's gonna pay for services for people to vote for me. And he figured out that's what Bismarck figured out. That's why I say that he invented the modern state, which is just bribery. And
That's
people are kind of people are figuring that out. They're realizing, like, wait a second, like how can I pay 100 and get 150 back? Like, how does it work? That doesn't work. And people are just constantly trying to figure out ways to get away from the state, and the state is always trying to figure out ways to get people. And
well, yeah, even education system can be viewed.
Yeah, the education system is one of those systems where just like you hold people back to your idea. And
yeah, like they teach people in school about Keynesian economics. So I mean,
yeah,
this is what you need to pay for. I mean, that's
the kind of crypto structure, the cryptography and Bitcoin, and that advanced too fast. Like the state is having real troubles keeping up with that, because like technology now, especially with cryptography, just advances so fast. It goes so the state can't really keep up. It's like confused. It's like, how do I should the bomb that? I don't know. Like, how do I? Yeah. And I think Bitnation is just, it's like Usain Bolt running and your grandma going like, how do I?
Yeah.
You shouldn't run that fast. You're gonna get hurt. You know. You get like this kind of difference of speed, where I think it's possible that government just doesn't keep up. He just doesn't figure it out.
Yeah, and I think, I mean, I don't think governments are actually, they can kind of see the writing on the wall. I mean, it has been talked about for so long, you know, the nation state is appearing and then the UN is emerging, etc., etc., you know, and like all kind of more and more government resources is going into UN, right? And people don't understand that that's gonna, you know, if UN takes over and it becomes really a world government, you know, that is going to
the European Union is just a state over state.
Right, exactly. That's going to be like the end of human history. I mean, it's going to lead to perpetual bloodshed because they're going to force even worse one-fit-all model on entire humanity, you know, than anything we have before. You know, the 200, you know, nation-state model is already not good, but one-fit-all model, I mean, that's horrible. And so basically, so I think they are kind of seeing that, you know, and I don't know. I mean, I would like to hope that people who works in the government, even though they are brainwashed status, like obviously they work there because they want something good for humanity. And I think if we explain rationally to them why that's a bad idea, you know, for world peace, and what we are doing is a good idea, you know. Then
I think you can actually get some people, but I think some people have like almost this religious block in their heads. Like, I cannot bring myself to question this. Like, I can't, you know.
yeah,
it's kind of like challenging a religion. It's like, yeah, but you're challenging like my job and what I work in and what the system, and I cannot imagine. You know, I get a lot of that from people actually.
Like, yeah, that's what's disturbing. I think you're right. Like the buy-in they have into the currency, and it's also pain. I mean, I know when I became an anarchist, it was a really painful process. You know, I mean, especially because I worked with governments, you know, and it was hard, you know, and it took me, because it also, like, if you have to question everything you have believed in and worked for years, you know, that's pretty challenging. And then you're going to be seen as a freak by people around you, you know, like your family and your friends and your colleagues. Everybody's, you know, you're going to be an outcast, right?
They will count you, mock you, they will talk about
you. Everybody
you.
will think you have just gone completely insane. You know, that's what I thought. Everybody told me, like, just lost it, you know, and I'm like, I haven't lost it at all, you know, I'm thinking very clearly.
Lost it. Like, I figured it out.
Yeah.
But I think people are coming to, I don't know in the world, but in Brazil, like that's one of the big benefits of having a really bad government like Brazil has.
Jeez.
People really figured out what the state is in Brazil.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, there is
so when you say, because if you go in a place where the state actually works, you know, like Japan or New Zealand or Switzerland, and you go like, there should be no state. People go like, how is that? No. But if you do that in Brazil, people are increasingly, like, it's not overwhelmingly, but ever more people are going like, I don't think that would work. But I get where you feel that, you know, that's comprehensible. You know, people are warming up to the idea.
Yeah. Like I have a question, like for Susan. I think that's a question that most people that are new to Bitnation, they have, because of the most part of the countries, they are Democrats. They live in a democracy, right?
Yeah.
Like in Brazil.
It's a dysfunctional system.
Yes, dysfunctional system. But I would like you to explain how does Holland system would work. How do you call it? It's a Holland.
It's a holacracy.
Holacracy. I would like you to explain, like, how would a holacracy work?
Okay, so Bitnation is a holacracy, right? So when people want to, so basically what a holacracy is, it's a very tiny, small hierarchical core, like a Genesis block in a blockchain. And then everybody can join, you know, and, you know, follow the kind of general principles, like, let's say the non-aggression principle or whatever, right? And then everybody within that framework, you can create their own groups. So instead of saying, you know, so I want to create a space agency that's vote about this issue, you know, people just say, okay, I have now started a Holland, that is a space agency Holland, and whoever wants to join me, and whoever wants to fund me, funds me, you know. So that way you don't need any like majority decision making involved at all. And if people don't like any of it or the general principles of the Holland, they can just fork the code and create an entirely new nation, right? So it's very organic, right? It's kind of like, you know, it's often compared to like swarms of birds when they fly, you know. You have like someone who kind of leads the swarm, and then someone can break out, you know, and take like a different lead, and then people can, you know, some follow the first one, some the other one, etc. But they all fly roughly in one direction, right? But they are independent agents that choose which bird to follow.
And it's all consented.
Yeah, exactly.
It has consent. There is the social contract is actually being signed.
Right. Exactly. Yep. Yeah, that's a good way of putting it. Yeah, a social contract. Yeah, I guess you could say that. I mean,
people are actually signing a contract. They're actually, I agreed with this. It's not like you're born, you signed it. Like, yeah, right. 100% literacy at birth. That's the kind of country you have.
Yep.
Exactly. Like they sign off saying that they have read and understood the Constitution. Right.
And so you participate in that, but you're not forced. It's not like, okay, you were born in Brazil, so you can either, you know, accept the social contract or be immediately deported to Ethiopia. What do you want?
Yeah.
And then the baby cries, and you go like, we're going to consider that signed. That works.
I mean, that's
recorded. You know, that's a sign. It works. Like next. And
right.
That's what really flips people. It's like, wait, I can actually, you know, disagree and leave and go to a place that I agree.
Yeah, right.
And people are not going to take my house. And how does that work? Like, where's the catch?
And you can do it all without even leaving your own office, you know?
And it's like, leave, go there. Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. As easy as you know, choose, you know, cell phone or something else, you know, whatever, right? It shouldn't be more complicated.
Do you think you could end up in a scenario where every single person has their country and it's just diplomacy? Like, do you think that's possible?
Well, I don't think it would be financially inefficient, because I think, I mean, one thing that a government do.
Because you would have like to manage everything. It's really annoying. It's like more
Exactly.
financially viable to get. I don't really like this, but let's go there. And I can't be bothered to run my own. It's not worth it.
Right, exactly. I mean, it's kind of like going to the supermarket. It's like, yeah, I can grow my own fruits and vegetables and my own chicken, or I can, go to like one shop specialized in wine, another shop specialized in vegetables, a third one, and then to my butcher, etc., which may work if you're in a small village and they're all on the same street, but that's not the case normally, right? So most people just prefer to go to a supermarket and have everything in one place.
Yeah, and it's weird, the structure of a constitution, because the constitution is, like, correct me if I'm wrong, but it's like we have this idea, and if you disagree, you go and do your own, and that's it.
Right, exactly.
And it's a weird constitution because it doesn't look like a constitution, like, at all.
Really?
The constitution is like, oh, we're gonna have this law and this one, and this is his power. We're gonna have election. But the constitution is
actually, you can give suggestions about what you think is best on the constitution.
Yeah, you can just add your own pull requests on the constitution. Yeah. So you just
you can, but what I was going with this is that you have like this. The constitution is more like a framework.
Right, exactly. I mean, my problem
and it's gonna end up in something that we honestly have like no idea of how that's gonna look.
Yeah.
Exactly. I mean, it's a framework people can build on, right? It's to provide a general direction. But I'm very hesitant to add in like kind of fixed laws and rules because, it's always easier to, like in any system, it's always easier to add rules than to remove them, right? So, I don't want to create like a crypto dictatorship,
But you can remove a rule really easily. You just fork and erase that rule, and everybody that agrees just go there.
Well, yeah, but then you need to fork it and create a brand new organization and stuff, I mean, sure.
Yeah, but then you can actually do like a calculation in my head. Like, do I really care? Is that really like financially better for me? Like, are there people that are going to, like, you can actually succeed? It's easy. And what I think is amazing is that you can end up with a scenario that you honestly have like no idea what's going to look like, which is the free market. Like, we have this new invention. What's going to do? What will it do? I have no idea. Just put it out there. And like 50 years later, it saved like 1 billion lives, like electricity, I don't know. And that's contrasting with today's constitutions, which is like really fixed rules that pretty much cannot change. And that's going to work. That's going to total work. And if it doesn't work, then whatever. You don't have an opinion, whatever. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
And how that just completely breaks the idea, the notion of a nation, of like government or governance. And it's really like the kind of thing, like you hear the idea, and then you go, you just need to go and lie down for like half an hour and just go think, wait a second. You really need to, like, give your brain some time, to get to adapt to that. And I think that's what people, like, they're not willing to do. Like, they're not ready. They're not open to that. But
I think people are, though. I mean, we got so much, like, people don't understand what Bitnation are, which in some ways is kind of good because that means everyone interprets it in the way they prefer to interpret it, right? So, everybody can make it their own concept, right? But, I know
you actually can do that. You actually can do, like, I want it to be this.
Right.
Like, you could theoretically get a socialist paradise inside Bitnation.
Right, why not? I mean, you can.
It wouldn't be economically viable, but you could actually, do it.
I think it can be economically viable in small societies where people know each other. Like, I mean, there have been like kibbutz in Israel, or like co-ops in San Francisco. I think if like people live together and genuinely know each other and have like a lot of lifestyle similarities, socialism can work in small. I don't think socialism is scalable, but I think it can work in small settings,
Like I think that this would be like it's a non-enforced thing. Like it's like a thing that everybody agrees with, and they go along. Like it's not like a state government.
They impose socialism, like the violent socialism.
Yeah.
It's like a non-capitalist voluntarism, some sort of.
Yeah, I mean, but that's what it is. When people ask me where I stand financially, you know, I come from the kind of ANCAP world, right? But nowadays, I just say I'm a voluntarist and I don't care about the economic system, because it's true. On a free market for governance, you can have whatever economic system you want, right? You can have, you know, full redistribution or none. That's just a personal choice. It's a lifestyle choice, right? Yes.
And the amazing thing is that everybody can pretty much get what they want.
Right.
It's not like we're going to get together and some idea is going to pop up and 9 out of 10 people don't like it, but it's going to happen anyways. And
right.
That's just the beautiful part of it. It kind of sounds like when I talk to some people, they actually get like this too good to be true. Like that can't be. No, that's too good. It cannot possibly work. It's like frozen food. It's like you get the meat and you put it in a place, and like 6 months later, it's good. Like,
yeah, right.
It cannot possibly work. Like, I don't like that. I refuse to. You know, and
right. And I mean, look at how far humanity has come, and we are going to the fucking moon. You know, we're going to Mars. Even, you know, it's. Of course, we can build something as easy as a fucking decentralized government. That's nothing in comparison to many other things we're doing, like, you know, nanotechnology.
Yeah, it's actually amazing. But it's not, I usually say, like, it's not only just nanotechnology. It's like there are guys out there in YouTube that have channels with 5 million subscribers, and they play the piano. Like, that's it. Like, we actually invented a system where a guy can play piano to millions of people and make a living of that, and do merchandising, and it works. And if you came up with that idea like 30 years ago, people would look at you like if you had like 3 heads.
Right.
Like, what?
I know.
Yeah.
Like that's mind blowing to me.
It's
right.
a rupture. It's a rupture from the governmental system that we have. For example, like I'm Brazilian and you are Brazilian too. Like it's a total rupture from the system we have nowadays. Like the government just regulates you, they tax you, and like you said in one of your videos, they were like taxing like 25% plus on foreign purchases. You know, like if you go to another country, you have to reserve like a room for a government official, because
there's actually a tax right now that if you buy a travel package, you have to pay the company that buys the travel package has to pay a 25% tax on top of that price.
Yeah.
So basically, if you're a family of 4 and you're flying to some other place, you're actually taking somebody of the government with you. That's like, what?
That's insane. That's insane.
Yeah, I know.
Insane.
Like, imagine if you are in a restaurant, right? If you remove the tax of, not just the tax that you pay, the VAT on the food, right? But also like the salary on the employers of the restaurant that goes to the government, the VAT on the rent, the VAT,
IRS.
yeah, the VAT on like the food that's being bought. Oh, it's IRS, right?
Yeah, it's IRS.
Right. You know, if you pay out of that, like if it wasn't for the government, the price would probably drop from $100 meal to like you know,
50.
five. No.
Yeah, less than that, right?
Yeah, 5.
If you had like no government, you would have like just on taxes you would from 100 to like 40.
No,
taxes.
No, because that's just when you consider direct taxes. But when you consider,
I'm thinking then comes regulations and everything. You could get like probably 10% of regional price. That's Brazilian reality right now.
Yeah, at the very maximum, yeah. I think it's even lower than 10%, frankly, you know?
I don't, yeah.
I mean, if you consider that it's not just you have to pay tax on the food you buy in the restaurant, but they have to pay taxes on people who work in the restaurant on the food they buy.
I'm thinking like regulation costs and that kind of thing. Actually, that's one of those things that I want to, you know, have somebody in the channel working with me that can actually like do this research. That I can, go to this person and go like, you know, I want you to go to, you know, McDonald's and figure out how much we would actually pay if there were like no government. Right. Because that's a big ass research that I'm not gonna do.
No, that's a law and tax and research. You gotta.
I know. Lot of research.
I know some people in law that can hook you up with. I can just give you the contacts and you talk to them about your channel and whatever. But like my point of view, like nowadays, for example, like the beer we are having right now, like we pay with Bitcoin.
Beer in Brazil is just insanity. It's just.
But Rafael, just listen to this. Like we just pay beer and cigarettes with Bitcoin.
Yeah, that's true.
We pay,
in the local gas station. Yeah.
In a local gas station.
Yeah.
They accept Bitcoin or to use the card?
McDonald's as
well.
And
McDonald's.
Yeah, we bought a McDonald's burger on the drive-thru.
You have the card.
Yeah, I have a card. I can.
It's a Visa card. Yeah.
I just have to.
Yeah.
But that's a Visa card for Bitcoins.
Yeah, I know.
Okay.
I'm still reading up on getting that and figuring that out too.
Yeah,
I mean, want to promote that on the channel. It's actually really awesome.
I know, right?
A way to.
I mean, we sell Bitcoin Visa cards actually. I don't know if you've seen this. I mean, that's actually.
Do you actually?
Yeah, that's
I have that.
Yeah, that's actually how we finance some of the operations. So.
How did I not know that? Like sometimes people actually come to me with this kind of information, and I feel like kind of ashamed. Like, how did I not know that? I should know that. That's kind of my job.
Okay, so I can do a screen share maybe, or I don't know if I can send you the link. Oh yeah.
No, just send me the link. I'll figure that out later.
All right. So yeah, here's the link on the chat, right?
So and this is like my Bitcoin card.
Yeah.
I'm just covering the numbers because the
tax. Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
For obvious reasons.
For reasons, duh.
Anyway, you can like you can see here. It's a Visa debit card.
Yeah.
And you just charge it with Bitcoin and just spend it, and yeah, I really need to get one of those.
I just put Bitcoins on it, and it works anywhere, and we can buy food, you can buy anything.
Yeah.
Like I was in Maricá, I used this card in Maricá to go to the supermarket and buy meat for barbecue.
Yeah. I really need to get one of those up and running for me.
Yeah, it's really
but
cool.
I think we can call it a night at this point.
Yeah, I think
we've gone for like 2 hours. I'm not sure. An hour and a half. We're going for that's already. So you can do us. So we can meet up later for the next state of the Bitnation.
Yeah.